Welcome back to Breakfast Television. Well, you'll recognize one of our next guests, Stephanie Erickson, who is a regular guest on the show and talking about aging. And aging, for a lot of people, there's some negative connotations, but it does not have to be that way. Stephanie joins us alongside 88-year-old thriving senior Jane Atkinson. Welcome to the show, Jane. Great to have you here as well. I want to start with you, though, Stephanie, because I mentioned there's those negative connotations when it comes to aging. What are some of the things you hear in your practice?
Well, I think mostly it's around the theme of I don't know what's going to happen. So it's kind of like that unknown that starts it out. A lot of it has to do with health. Am I going to become ill? What's my mobility going to be like? Am I going to have memory problems? Who's going to help me and take care of me? Will I have to change my home, move somewhere else? And of course, things like I'm losing my friends and family, because as we age, we start to lose friends and families, and so there's a lot of isolation.
So do you find that the worries are happening even before we even get to that point where we even have an issue with some of the things you just mentioned, memory, mobility, those sort of things?
Yeah, everyone is worried in advance, I think. I think that's part of the problem, and we anticipate that things are going to be bad, and that's the whole point of this, is it doesn't have to be that way, and it's not like that for a lot of people. But I think the image that people have of aging is really negative, aside from like the wrinkles and the lines, which we all know is happening earlier than later.
Just means you smile more. That's what I keep telling people.
Yes.
That's where the wrinkles come from.
Right.
Let's turn our attention to you, Jane. And you're thriving at 88 years old. Everyone will say, what's your secret, Jane? And I think your secret is probably fairly simple. But tell us a little bit about how you're thriving as a senior here in Montreal.
Well, I try to keep busy, and I have 4 or 5 volunteer jobs, which I enjoy very much, and they're very varied.
What are some of the volunteer work that you're doing?
Well, once a week I go to St. Anne de Bellevue, and I'm a shop assistant in the thrift shop for Nova.
Nice.
Which I enjoy.
You do your lawn bowling in the summers, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not volunteer work, but it's sports,
and
I enjoy that.
And you stay active at home as well, right?
Yes, I do exercises, I walk every day, and I think also I'm a very active person. Sitting down doesn't really do it for me.
I got that when I met you a little bit earlier today. You also, as I understand it, you take some courses as well at McGill.
This is the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning, and I've been a member there for 20 years. They have about 800 members, and they offer courses in 3 slices a year.
Okay.
With subjects ranging from films to music to philosophy to history, very varied, and it's what they call peer learning.
Right.
In that the moderators are all members of MCLL, and that's really a very worthwhile occupation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stephanie, as a family caregiving expert, do you see more stories like this?
I do, and that's why I wanted to do this, because this to me is actually more realistic than the thoughts that people have about aging. And I think what Jane is doing really well is she's stimulating her mind and her body. And the thing she didn't mention is she also has family around her. I know not everybody has family, and they can maybe substitute for friends, but she's also connected with her family. And I think for me, those are the 3 things. When people have that, they seem to have the secret recipe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jane, I want to ask you for your advice. You know, other people that are watching and they're worried about aging and all those issues that Stephanie talked about. What advice would you give them?
Oh, I don't know that I have anything very world-shattering, but don't look back too much. Try and stay in the moment. Keep busy.
Stephanie, you know, the nice thing about having you on is that you know that there are resources available out there. And do you think that's part of the problem, too, is people are living in isolation, people are lonely? Listen, we've seen Britain has a minister of loneliness now because it's such a big issue.
Yeah.
How do people find resources? You know, not every senior is computer savvy and on there. How can they find help? How can they find even, you know, a social network for themselves?
I think we need to tell other people what we need, because you're right. You know, they're not going to go on the computer. They don't have social workers just showing up at their house presenting resources. So I think starting just with your friends, your families, your neighbors, and being very honest. I'm feeling lonely. I feel like I need a particular resource, I'm lacking this, and just reach out to your neighbor, like old school, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to look online, just tell somebody, I need some help, I'm feeling this way, and people are going to pull together and help. I think people generally are good,
Yeah.
and they're going to help.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Stephanie, always a pleasure. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Derek.
joining us. Jane, a pleasure meeting you. Keep staying active here in Montreal.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more BT right after this.